All right, thank you, Mike. I was told by Ty, and I just met him, by the way. First time I've met him. Yes, we have talked on Zoom, and we chatted a little bit, but this is now a first face-to-face meeting. It's been difficult for the both of us. Both of us will seek therapy, I'm sure, in order to recover from this, but at the moment, I am here to speak about subjects that maybe you have never heard of before, especially when you're looking at the title. And you may even question this, which is why I'm going to have to beat this into you for the next hour in order to convince you of what I wish to say. So, I am Tom Dykstra. This is the location. You could see I'm in Gainesville, Florida. So, that means two things. One, that's why I said welcome Indiana. It's good to be up here. And because I am the coldest person in this room right now. So, why insects do not attack healthy plants? That is the presentation today. I'm going to need to talk a little bit about myself because most, if not all of you, do not know who I am. So, let us begin. Where does my story begin? My story begins at Rutgers University. That's where it begins with me. I never went there. Never even set foot on the campus, as a matter of fact. But it started there because that is where Mom and Dad met. And if they didn't meet, I wouldn't be here right now. So my beginning is Rutgers University, but there's another detail I do need to talk about. And that is my dad majored in ornamental horticulture, and he minored in economic entomology. So here I am talking about insects and plants. My dad did the same thing. Now he did make one mistake. He emphasized the plants and de-emphasized the insects. I corrected that because I am now the entomologist of the family. He disagrees with the direction that I've headed, but I do emphasize the insects over the plants, and therefore that's going to be a little smattering of what you get, but you're still going to get a lot of plants today. All right, and then we moved to Rochester, New York. That's where I grew up. So, even though I may be freezing right now, even though I might be the coldest person in the room right now, I know more about snow than any of you. Second only to Buffalo in the country, except for that one year that we did beat Buffalo. And I think my dad can still tell me what the date is with pride, you know, whenever it was. Like, yeah, back in 1979, we beat Buffalo, yeah! And I was like, Dad, this isn't something to really be proud about, but we did it once. So I'm familiar with snow, familiar with the cold weather, and that's where we grew up, right underneath Lake Ontario. And maybe it was natural for me then to go to Cornell University. It was only 2 hours away. Plus, I wanted to major in entomology. I liked bugs. I liked them a lot. Some would say too much. And when you like bugs this much, not only do you want to major in them, but it also keeps people at a distance from you too. Because once they hear that you're an entomologist, they really don't want to associate with you because I think you're going to be some kind of crazy nerd who's going to be talking science all day and getting crazy about different species. I can do that, but I'm also a reasonable guy too. And so, Cornell, what is Cornell like? As you can see, I walked past this every day for 3 years when I was living on North Campus. So this is Cornell University. And so after 4 years at Cornell and living in Rochester, New York, but mostly the Cornell is that, you know, when you get this Ivy League institution training, when all of that massive intelligence just kind of descends upon you, and then you realize for the first time things you've never thought of before, like, I hate the cold, and it's time for me to move. So I did. So I came down to the University of Florida. Big difference between that. We got a lot of white, then we go to a lot of green. So I liked it so much, I did decide to stay. I'm still in Gainesville, Florida, living just outside of it right now on 5 acres, and raising our family there. I have 7 kids. 8th one is on the way. Thank you very much. Not that anyone said anything, but I'm just going to pretend that you're happy for me. So this is Florida. For those of you who don't know, it's a peninsula. I'm not going to spell that. And that's where I am, North Florida. University of Florida is where I was for the master's and the PhD after I graduated with the degree at Cornell. And so here it is, all laid out. BS in entomology, 1990, and then I came down to Florida for 94 and 97. You will notice that there are 3, not 2 and not 1. I have 3 degrees in entomology. This absolutely qualifies me to talk about anything dealing with insects. Absolutely nothing about anything else, because this is the corner that you are placed in when you have this many degrees. They're like, well, I was asking a question about bugs, but that's about as far as we want to go with that. And so some people do. But I've had a chance to move into neurophysiology of bugs, bioelectromagnetics of bugs. So I can talk about many different things, but still, scientifically wise, I've been able to expand my horizons. In addition to the 3 degrees, I have taken 23 entomology courses, not 23 credits at the university level, 23 courses. One of those courses was 5 credits. So there are a lot of credits that were taken. I'm the only one in the world that I know of who has 3 degrees in entomology and has taken 23 courses too. So after this, I started Dykstra Laboratories. And I've been there ever since, 1997. So I have an independent laboratory. We do a lot of things that some people would consider to be normal, and we also do some things that people might consider a bit abnormal, because I will do research on things, some of the stuff that you may have heard about on various shows. I know people, for example, on a first-name basis who've dealt with UFOs and Sasquatch, for example, but sometimes you get kind of put into this category when you're doing research which is a little off the beaten path. Whoops. Wow, this is really sensitive. There we go. And I have a number of patents. 2024, that was the last one that just came out this year. I think it was just a few months ago, so I got a number of patents too. Why? Why am I telling you that I've got 3 degrees in entomology? Why did I just tell you that I have 23 courses in entomology? Why am I telling you about all these patents? I can tell you why. It's because I'm trying to show off as much as I possibly can. Because if I come out during this presentation and say something that sounds a little off, I'm hoping that you're going to give me the benefit of the doubt. So let's start out with that off and comment right now. Insects only feed upon food that is considered unfit, nutritionally poor, dead, or dying. I'm referring, of course, to the insects eating mostly plants, but you see why I have the reputation that I do. So when you come out with a statement like this, you better be able to back it up. And so after several decades of looking at that, I'm now going to start presenting evidence for you in order to show you the truth of this statement so that you understand why insects are there. That they are there by design, and they have a reason, and that is to eat crappy food. We get the good stuff, they get the bad stuff. That's why they're there. So, if I have 2 grasshoppers, and I give them a choice between going towards healthy food, what you and I would consider healthy, or unhealthy food, what would they do? Most of you would say they're going to distribute themselves evenly. Half of them are going to go here, half of them are going to go there. They're going to eat anything that you throw at them. That's what most of you would say. But it's not that way. Instead, they will always go towards the unhealthy food. So this is something maybe that you're hearing about for the first time. I can assure you, I was not taught this at Cornell. I also wasn't taught this at the University of Florida. I'm pretty sure it's not being taught at Rutgers. Also pretty sure it's not being taught at Purdue. Where's that armor that you promised me, Ty? It's on the way, thank you. Oh, it's not going to get here fast enough. And so because of that, we've got a situation here. Now, if I were going to try and convince you that insects only eat crappy food, how would I do this? And I would say, aha, why don't we start with the dung beetle? The dung beetle eats crap. In this case, it's the elephant dung beetle eating elephant dung. Some of you might say, well, it's an exception. Don't cherry pick with me. Really, cherry picking. Do you realize that there are 7,000 species of dung beetles? So this is not an accidental food source that the insects are eating. 7,000 of our 1 million species specialize in dung if they're a beetle, and there's a lot more that do it that are not beetles. Termites. Do termites eat something that you and I eat? Are they competing with us? No, they're eating dead wood. So because they're eating dead wood, have you ever thought about the fact that they're not really competing with us? Sure, they may eat our houses, and they're competing with us as far as our lodging is concerned, but they are not competing with us as far as food is concerned. Love bugs. Down where I'm from in Florida, and especially Louisiana too, you get a lot of love bugs. What do? They feed on decaying vegetation. That's the key word. Decaying. Not vegetation. Decaying vegetation. And we have a lot of decaying vegetation in Florida. Anytime it dies, it's immediately attacked by the love bugs. And they're really, really good at it. And they can get to some very, very large numbers. Often attract to highways, and they will splatter your windshield to the point where it's difficult to see. If you ever go down in Florida during love bug season, I would absolutely urge you, please, please, if this happens to you, do not turn on your windshield wipers. You will remember what I'm saying right now if you ever decide to do that. Clothes moths, are they competing with us? I don't think so. They're eating clothes. Not all synthetic fibers. I mean, it's obviously going to be things like wool, but clothes moths are special at going after food that we certainly don't want to eat, that we would consider to be nutritionally poor, but there they are. Domestic beetles, they eat decaying meat and the hair off bones, as well as the dead insects in my insect collection. These are often used in museums. Why? Is to clean off a head of a deer or an antelope so that it can be displayed in the museum. Why? Because it's better than the chemicals. The chemicals can leave a little bit of a residue. It's not going to be as efficient. These guys, incredibly good about picking it clean. Absolutely amazing at what they do. Is this competing with us? Does anybody want to eat an antelope, especially if the head has been removed a few months ago? No, this is not the type of food source that we are trying to eat. Carrion flies, same thing. They're going after, let's say, deer on the side of the road. Now, I do understand we like venison. I get that part. But if it's lying on the side of the road, how many of you pull up a chair and start feasting on it? I would like to say it's 0% of you. That's what I would like to say. I don't know if I can, but generally we don't do this. So that includes green bottle flies, blue bottle flies. The California flies are really good at this. There are a number of other insects that also eat carrion too, but I just wanted to mention this, and I also wanted to show you the maggots right before lunch. You're welcome. Cockroaches. Are cockroaches really competing with us? You know what kind of food they eat? Pretty much any type of crap that they find. Pretty much. Especially behind the refrigerator, because this was just sprayed right now. We've got a lot of dead cockroaches. But cockroaches are not competing with us. They are eating food that you and I do not consider something that we would want on our dinner plate. Even though they may come to the dinner plate afterwards, they're just going after the scraps. So cockroaches are also eating crappy food. Drosophila melanogaster, hope I'm not bringing back any bad memories if you've taken any genetics classes, but these fruit flies go after, well, fruit among other things, but specifically overripe fruits, vegetables, and other organic foods that are damaged, fermenting, or in an otherwise state of decay. So just because these fruit flies are going after something that we eat, they're very specific about the type of food that they are going after. It's going bad. And if I'm in the store and I see some of these fruit flies flying around some of the tomatoes, will I pick up the tomatoes and purchase them? I will, because I'm going to go through and I'm going to make sure that I get a tomato that is not being attacked. But if you go deep enough, you will find those 1 or 2 tomatoes where there will be dozens of these flies around, feeding on, laying their eggs in it, because they're being very selective. They're not just going after food in general, they're going after specific types of food, such as decaying tomatoes, as the case may be. Stored product moths, stored product beetles. What are they doing? Are they going after plants in the field? No! They're going after the stuff after you harvest it, after it's no longer living, after it's dead, and you put it in the storage grain bin, and you put it in the silo, you put it in the warehouse area. Then you have problems with the stored product insects. Specialists. They're specialists at what they do. That's why we call them stored product insects. We can even have entire courses at the university level dealing with stored product insects. Big group, important group. Not competing with us either, unless you say, well, they're eating our food. Yes, they are. But why are they eating some foods and not others? Because I have talked to many farmers who have had grain in their grain bins, and I say, what about the insects that are attacking your grain? And they say, we have none. And I said, how long has it been in the grain bin? A week? And they said, no, it's been about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. We've had absolutely no insects attacking it. This then gets me wondering, and when you hear these things, this should also get you wondering, why is this so? Because insects are there to eat. And why haven't they destroyed Kauai? A lot of food there, a lot of vegetation. I was there, I took this picture. You see trees? I do. Shrubs? Yep. Grasses? Yep. A lot of food. A lot of plant matter there, lots of it. Why is it not being eaten? Why has that small island not been decimated? It's because most of the plants are too healthy, and the insects are not eating them. Does this mean the insects are not there because it's an island? Bull crud. I saw a lot of insects when I was there. Probably shouldn't have been looking that closely. This was my honeymoon, but I was looking. So there are a lot of insects that are eating plants. I saw them, but the majority of the plants are not being touched. This has got to get you wondering that something is wrong here, and that maybe, just maybe, Dr. Dykstra might be onto something. So, this then begs the question, well, what is a healthy plant? You've got to ask that question. You have to. Well, some could say, I would say, well, if an insect's attacking it, it would certainly be unhealthy. But is that good enough? Absolutely not. Shouldn't be good enough for anybody, although it's a good start, and it's certainly not good enough for PhDs. We have to go a little bit deeper. So we do. But what exactly constitutes a healthy plant? Can anybody in this room look at this plant and tell me with absolute certitude whether or not it's healthy or not? Absolute certitude, meaning I got a gun. I'm going to put it to your head, and I know the answer. And you better make sure that you're right, because if you're wrong, I'm going to pull the trigger. How sure are you that this plant is healthy? Or how sure are you that this plant is unhealthy? Can any of you tell? I would say Probably none of you can. What constitutes a healthy plant? Some would say, well, it's tall. If it's tall, it's got to be healthy because, stunted growth thing, that makes sense. Well, I get that, but that means trees are some of the healthiest plants on planet Earth? No, that doesn't work. They're healthier than shrubs. That does not work either. We can't use that. Does it grow fast? Well, if it grows slow, stunted growth, obviously it's just not doing that well. So if it's growing fast, it's got to be healthy. Bull crud. That makes bamboo the healthiest plant on planet Earth. And we all know that that is not the healthiest plant on planet Earth. It could be in some cases, but it's not always, just because it grows fast. Well, does it grow green, especially dark green? Yeah, dark green, that's got to be it. Bull crud. I can throw nitrogen at a plant. I can throw iron at a plant and green it up. Does that mean it's healthy? No, it does not. Because I can measure it, and I could tell you that the health just went down based upon the nitrogen amendment or sometimes the iron amendment. Not in all cases, but sometimes this happens. Will it flower? Well, if it doesn't flower, it's not healthy. There's some truth to that too. A healthy plant, when it goes through reproduction, does need to be at a certain level of health in order to get the flower or to get enough flowers so that it can put a crop out, for example, apples or oranges, something like that. But that doesn't work either because that only includes the angiosperms. So we can't go by flowering. That's not going to work either. Some would say a good root system. There's certain truth to that. Good root system does mean it's healthy, but we got some that go really deep and some that don't go that deep. Corn doesn't go that deep. That doesn't mean it can't be healthy, because it can be healthy. So the roots aren't going to work either. We can't judge that. Does it grow even? We get this a lot from farmers. If it grows even, then I am going to be able to harvest it at the same time. There's a money component to that. There's a convenience factor. I get that. Is that a good enough excuse to say it's healthy because my crop is even? No, it is not. Some people say it's healthy because I grow it myself in my garden or on my front porch. And therefore, don't tell me, Dr. Dykstra, that it's not healthy, because I care for it, I caress it, I sing to it at night. The plant loves me, and therefore my plant is healthy. Is that a good indication? Is that good enough? Because you're the neighbor of that crazy person, and you're thinking, wow, they're off their beaten path. So it's not convincing to most people, these excuses that come up. How do you measure health? Well, you can measure health by measuring the rate of photosynthesis. Indirectly, we do that with the refractometer. If a plant is healthy, it is photosynthesizing well. All plants photosynthesize. This is where the green color comes from. The green, the chlorophyll, the chloroplasts, the whole thing. But we need to be able to measure it. So if we measured photosynthesis indirectly by measuring the end product. The end product. The end product is what? Sugar. Sugar is the end product of photosynthesis. And if we have more sugar in a plant, we are going to have more photosynthesis going on. This is how we measure a healthy plant. And we can do so in less than a minute. And you don't have to send it out to a laboratory. And it won't cost you any additional money after you spend the $20 to $100 to get a refractometer. Yeah, they're getting down to $20 right now on Amazon. So if we're going to test the plant sap with a refractometer, which is squeezing the leaf, oftentimes, as Ty mentioned, you will use a garlic press. Other times, if I'm out there doing a lot of readings, I'm going to have a plant sap press because I'm doing dozens of them at a time, and my hands get tired. Plus, you could break the garlic press over time. But a garlic press works well, and you do have to replace them every once in a while because they do break, but they can start the job for all of you. This is what they look like. The one off to the left on the top is more of a manual one. You simply put the drops, you lift it up, put 2 or 3 drops on, let it spread, turn it towards light, whether it be towards the sun or even a luminescent light here inside. You can get a reading pretty fast. Okay? For those of you who are technologically disadvantaged, who don't like technology, that's the one for you. For those of you who get a little bit more of the techie stuff and you're comfortable with using batteries, then you can use the digital one off to the right. I like that one because I understand how batteries work. I usually got to have a second pair on hand just in case in the middle of a field they go. But the beauty of the digital refractometer is that it's faster, it's easier to clean, I cannot beat the convenience factor of having it. In addition, it also tells me the Brix reading to the 10th, the nearest 10th. And you know how important it is to know whether a plant is at 12.2 Brix or 12.3 Brix? It doesn't make any difference at all, none whatsoever. But to me, you know, with the PhD, I get kind of giddy over that. We're like 12.3, yeah! Went up 1/10 of a point. So this is the exactitude that you get with the digital refractometer. The manual one, it's kind of a little fuzzy and hazy, and you're only going to go to about 1/2 a Brix. You can tell whether it's 12, 12.5, 8.58. You can only go to about 1/2 a Brix. Is that good enough? You better believe it is. So if you don't want to spend the extra money, the digital ones can run 120 plus. You can easily go to 300 or 400. Ones over here, less than $100. So they're obviously going to be a lot cheaper. But do I need to even talk to you about money? Because as I'm talking to you right now, I'm looking at the largest machines that I have ever seen practically in my life in an indoor warehouse. And so when I understand how much money you guys are spending on these machines, and some of you are going to get cheap on me and say, well, I'm going to get the cheap refractometer. Why go for the digital one? Then I would say, all right, you and I are not on the same wavelength. So beautiful machines. Wow, Ty. Can I take one home on the plane? No. Overhead baggage? Yes. Excuse me, sir, what do you plan on doing with that? I plan on taking it home. That's what I plan on doing. All right, so these are the 2 types of refractometers that are out there. And I need to teach you a little bit about why the readings are the way that they are. I need you to understand a little bit more about the insects that are attacking these plants. Because if you've been on the internet, you will hear the magic number of 12 Brix. That's what you hear. 12, 12, 12. What does it mean? Well, get a 12 Brix or above, no insects, no problems, easy coast, easy living. Anything below 12 Brix, potential problem, can have insects, fungus, disease attacking it. There's some truth to that, but come on. I mean, did I just mention that I got a PhD and I really don't want to be cornered into a single digit? Above 12, good. Below 12, down. We got to be able to understand why the insects are doing what they're doing. And I'm going to start with comparing the grasshopper and an aphid, because they're really on opposite ends of the spectrum. Let's take a look at their guts. For the grasshopper has it's like a tube within a tube, because the grasshopper is a tube with the exoskeleton, and then it's got the digestive system on the inside, another tube. Okay? Food goes in one end through the mouth and comes out the other end, the anus. Unidirectional. Goes in one direction. That's how we eat. This is what we're used to. Comes in our mouth, comes out the back end. Not so with the aphids. You will notice that the aphids have a distorted digestive system, and it actually folds back upon itself. Kind of weird. What's going on there? Well, when an aphid takes in food, it can do the same thing. It can go in a unidirectional manner and then come out the back end. But why does it fold back upon itself? The reason why it folds back upon itself is because it can actually pull nutrients or any type of stuff out of the digestive system and send it out the back end before it ever gets inside and is ingested. What are the two things that the aphids do quite readily? They get rid of water and they get rid of sugar. This is why when you have aphids or other homopterous insects in a tree, you go into the dentist's office, get your cavity filled, and you come out and you get really ticked because your truck is sticky. That's because you parked it underneath a tree that had homopterous insects that are sucking on the juices of the tree, pushing it out the back end in a relatively pure form, water and sugar. It's sugar water, and it's sticky. Has anyone ever thought about why some insects are pushing out sticky water from their back end? Ants love it. They'll even go up and massage the aphids sometimes, and they'll just go ahead and poop right for them, and they get a little bit of a drink. They love that stuff. It's not for me. It's probably not for some of you either. But this is the way it works with the aphids. Huge difference between the grasshoppers and the aphids. So they are trying to get rid of excess water, and they're trying to get rid of the excess sugar. Well, this is interesting. What else is going on? Well, insects also have other problems, other issues, digestive issues. For example, if we have a protein, given protein, let's just call this small protein, a nucleotide, relatively small, 33 amino acids. Many of the proteins that I study are 400 plus, so this is a relatively small one, which I'm just doing for demonstration purposes. How do you break this down? Well, you break it down with an enzyme. So when you cut a protein in two, that is the process of digestion. You're familiar with it, I think. I get it. You get it. This isn't that surprising. This is all mediated by an enzyme. The enzyme can't work without a cofactor. So this is why I have a misshapen enzyme up there. But once you bring in a cofactor for this imaginary enzyme, I'm just using an imaginary cofactor of manganese. So once manganese associates with this enzyme, it becomes active. And it's now able to do what it's supposed to do, which in this particular fanciful case is to start breaking down a protein. Sometimes these enzymes can do other things. Instead of breaking apart, they can actually cause folds to occur and connections to occur. So cysteine bridges, very common. Disulfide bridge, very common in proteins. You can easily have 3, 4, 5, 6 of them in a given protein, which causes it to contort and twist to make it a well-formed protein. This can be mediated by another imaginary enzyme. Let's just say that the cofactor for this one is zinc, just for the sake of argument. So we got a different cofactor helping this enzyme to do the job of allowing the protein to curve and connect with itself. That is a well-formed protein. Well-formed proteins are not eaten by insects. They have to eat proteins that are broken down, either completely, such as a bunch of amino acids, or in parts. That makes them digestible. That is the reason why the insects are going after particular types of plants. They have digestible food. So this is a picture of 4 proteins that are forming a red blood cell. You can see the twisting and the contorting. If they're well formed, you get a nice circular red blood cell, and you're going to be able to breathe easy. If you're having difficulty with your red blood cells right now, not getting enough oxygen, starting to fall asleep, Dr. Dykstra is not really doing it for you, you're thinking about lunch, your mind is not on what he's trying to say, then maybe we need to get more oxygen in. Take a deep breath if you need to. This is all mediated by the red blood cells. If you do not have those proteins, if they are not twisted and contorted in the right way, you cannot transmit oxygen through your system. Sickle cell anemia is one well-known case, but there are other ailments which make the red blood cells unable to do what they are supposed to do. So you're starting to understand a little bit about proteins, what makes them complete, what makes them incomplete. They can either be broken apart, they could not be folding in the correct way. Dissolved nutrients. You know this instinctively already. Any of you have ever been to a hospital before, especially for an extended period of time, maybe you're not allowed to eat anything, they will hook you up with an IV. And the reason why is because you can't feed yourself for one particular reason or another, maybe major surgery, don't know. But in this IV, they will put in dissolved nutrients. They will put in individual sugars and individual amino acids, and it will go straight into your blood system and therefore keep you nutritionally up to snuff while you recover in the hospital. You will notice there is no cheeseburger in the IV. You will notice there's no pizza in the IV. We cannot digest burgers and pizza through our blood. That has to come in through our mouths and then placed into our stomach and properly digested. So you're starting to understand a little bit more that even we have limitations about what we can do and what we can't do depending upon how we get that food and the modality that that food is received. Insects do the same thing. They just have a lot more variety than we do because there are a million species of them. So, monosaccharides, the sugars. We can have a single monosaccharide, meaning a 6-carbon sugar. Fructose, galactose, and glucose are 3 of them, well known. We also have disaccharides. This just means 2 sugars come together. Di means 2, and saccharin refers to a sugar. So that is the well-known sugar known as sucrose. Sucrose is known as table sugar. Anytime you're putting a little bit of sugar on something, or maybe in your coffee, it's almost always sucrose. That is the preferred sugar that is done. We like the taste of it, and it digests well. We also have trisaccharides too, just to let you know that you can go further, and you can go even further than that when you move to cellulose. Cellulose is wood, plant fiber, and it's composed of a lot of glucose 6-carbon sugars. So the glucose that we have right up there at the top right there, a whole bunch of them come together and connect and make cellulose. Glucose is the major sugar used on our body. Major sugar. It's used for everything. Make ATP. It runs the show. Why can't we digest cellulose? I just got finished telling you that glucose is the main sugar, the main one that we use. And I'm telling you that cellulose is composed with a whole bunch of them. But we can't digest cellulose. We can't eat a tree. Why is that? One problem, it's the bond. We can't break the bond. The 1,4-alpha glycosidic bond, right there, can't break it. Cellulose is indigestible to us. That's why other organisms, even termites can't do it, by the way. They still need microorganisms to break it down. But when they're breaking down wood, you've got to have the ability to break it down, the correct enzymes in order to break it down. Cellulose is not a food source for us. Sometimes we refer to that as roughage, because when we take it into our system, it helps clean us out. That's cellulose. Glucose, just a bunch of glucose molecules. If you understand why we cannot eat a tree, you are at the very least beginning to understand why insects cannot eat everything that is out there. They have limitations, we have limitations. They're good at what they do, we're good at what we do, and there are also some things that we're both bad at. So, what is happening with this sugar? All plants photosynthesize. This is the reason really for their existence. It's all by design. We've got these plants that are photosynthesizing, bringing sugar. Essentially, it's just sunlight and CO2 with a few other things that are brought together to make sugar. Well, that's just great. But they get rid of most of it. Or maybe not most of it, but about 40%. About 40% of the sugar, the photosynthate, the end product of photosynthesis, is expelled. Plant doesn't use it. It is sent down to the roots and exuded into the soil. Well, that just seems like an incredible waste of time. Plant just spent all that energy, a lot of energy, making the sugar, and it's dumping a significant portion of it into the roots or the rhizosphere. So from 0 to 100%, do they keep some of it? Of course they do. They need sugar for their existence. We need sugar for our existence. And it varies. Somewhere between 20 to 70% of the photosynthate in a plant, depending upon various factors, are exuded into the soil. To do what? Ty already mentioned it already. It's to feed the microbes. It's to feed the microbes. The plant considers it important enough to dump about 20 to 70% of its photosynthate into the ground. If the plant considers that important, we should also think that that's pretty important for the plant too. And sugar is incredibly important to have. And you need to have it in large amounts. If you do not, the microbes are not doing their job. What are the microbes doing? They are feeding the plant micronutrients. Which micronutrients? Those same cofactors that I just got finished telling you about for the enzymes. Proper digestion occurs with those micronutrients. Those micronutrients do everything in our bodies and in the plant bodies. They need copper, iron, manganese. They need these micronutrients, small amounts of it, cobalt, in order to do things with it. But what do we focus on? We usually don't focus on the micronutrients. We usually focus on NPK. That's what we usually focus on. But the micronutrients are incredibly important, probably more important, because without them, you don't have a healthy plant. And when you don't have a healthy plant, you're going to get a low Brix reading from it. So it's a good time to bring up some numbers right now. I'm going to start filling out this chart. I'll let you know when I get to the end for anyone who wants to take a picture of it, but don't take it now because I'm not ready. So if I'm going to be getting a Brix reading from a leaf, not the stem, not the root, not the fruit, the leaf. It's the most consistent reading on a plant in order to tell me whether or not it's healthy or not. It's going to be between 1 to 20. Almost never goes above 20. In some cases, it can. In rare cases, it does. But for all practical purposes, it's going to max out at 20 Brix when I'm doing a leaf Brix reading. And I know that if the Brix reading is between 1 to 2, force feeding is going to become necessary because these plants are in trouble. They're not doing well. They are not healthy. Because they're not healthy, they need to be force-fed. Greens on a golf course, force-fed, cannot feed themselves. No root system, insignificant root system, virtually no leaf photosynthesizing, must be force-fed 7 days a week. No day off when you're feeding the grass on a golf course. So a lot of these plants are low because they're not photosynthesizing and we need to help them along. Otherwise, they will die. Stop feeding the greens for 1 week on a golf course and you tell me what happens. All of us instinctively know what will happen. Yeah, it's going to turn brown, it's going to die. That's right. Because these plants are not healthy and they cannot do it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have them. I'm just giving you an idea about what happens when the Brix levels get at 2 and below. When they're between 3 to 7, they have a fighting chance of surviving. They actually look pretty reasonable, and they will grow. In the vegetative state, they actually do okay. They can put on leaves, you can get a bigger stem, you can get roots. All of that can be done between 3 to 7. So because they have a fighting chance, they're doing all right. Not great, but okay. But at 6, something happens. At 6 Brix, the energy levels in the plant have now risen. Before, maybe they were at 2. Now they're at 3, 4, 5, 6. At 6, plants have secondary plant metabolites that start to pick up. And they pick up in a grand way starting at 6. What are the plant's secondary plant metabolites? Well, they add color to a plant. They add taste to a plant, flavor. They add smells. The plant smells the way that it should be. These are all secondary plant metabolites that are going on. So what are you trying to say to us, Tom? Are you trying to say that a plant that is below 6 Brix tastes like cardboard? Because that's what it's sounding like you're saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you've ever tasted a fruit or a vegetable that tastes like cardboard, I could tell you what the Brix is going to be on that thing, because I've tested it, and it's going to be low. Local supermarket, Publix down in Florida, best tomato I ever tested from them is a 5.2. You can cut open a tomato coming in at 3.7, 3.8, and place it underneath your nose. Or someone who doesn't know what it is, ask them to smell it. And you'll say, what is it? And they'll say, I don't smell anything. You just cut open a tomato, but it's a 3.7. Do you see the point that I'm making here right now? Between 8 to 12, the plants develop what I call a sword and a shield. They are able to defend themselves. They weren't able to defend themselves much before, but now they become reasonably good at defending themselves. Water retention abilities increase pretty quickly in this stage. What do I mean by water retention abilities? Well, when the plants get higher Brix, 8, 9, 10, that means they're also putting more sugar into the roots. You're following me? And because they're putting more sugar into the roots, you've got more microbes in the soil. And because you have more microbes in the soil, they need water. And every single one of those millions of microbes are going to go take a sip and hold on to that water. That is water retention. That's even more important than the type of soil. People say, oh, well, it's all about the soil. You got sandy soil down in Florida. You don't have a lot of water retention. Well, you can drastically increase it by increasing the microbial content, and there are ways to do that. I'll talk a little bit about that in the second presentation. So there are ways to do this, but your water usage will go down, give or take, about 50% as you go between 8 to 12. So whatever your water usage is, it will be about half by the time you pass through that 8 to 12 stage. That is money. And if you happen to live in states, none of you have to worry about that, like Arizona, New Mexico, Southern California, Colorado, where you're given rations on your water, then you can see how important it is in order to make sure that those microbes are in there so that you can raise a crop and it's going to be healthy. Insect resistance begins in earnest in this stage. It's barely there before that, but it begins hot and heavy between 8 to 12. The plants between about 12 and 20 are objectively healthy. No matter what scale you measure them on, they're healthy. You'll be able to know it by looking at them. Sometimes you can tell by the size of the leaf. Sometimes you can smell by the odor, the smell that's coming from it. It is now fit for human consumption. Before, it really wasn't, because it's kind of crappy food. But now, fit for human consumption means you can consume it, and live a long life, 80, 90, 100 years old. This is the type of food that we are supposed to be eating. We just are not doing it. What do plants need in order to be a higher Brix? This is what I call my no-duh slide, because as you're reading these four things, most, if not all of you, are going, I know this already. So you don't even know to go any further. But you know what? I am going to go through these four things right now, because I don't think everybody in here does know this. They need sunshine. Sunshine from the sun, okay? So if you're going to need low visible radiation, you're going to need invisible radiation, you're going to need UV radiation on that plant in order for it to be healthy. How many of you know this? Because if you are putting down 36,000 seeds or 40,000 seeds of corn per acre, you don't know this. And I'm telling you this for the first time. Because it's so crowded in there, the corn plants can't photosynthesize well. They are lower Brix. Under these situations, they are more easily attacked. You have more fungus problems, you have more insects attacking your plants when this happens. You will be amazed at what you can do with 18 to 20,000 seeds per acre. And I know individuals who have had yields very competitive, running up there at about 160, 170, putting out a lot less seeds. So it can be done. If you do not know this, I'm glad to have told you about this now. It's called the sun. It's a big fiery ball in the middle of our solar system. Okay? Water. That should be common sense too. You don't have enough, the microbes have nothing to swim in. If you have too much, the aerobic microbes drown. How many of you realize this? Many of you don't. Many of you are hearing for the first time that microbes are sipping water and have water retention abilities. So you're not maybe understanding the water cycle well enough in order to raise a healthy crop, because raising low Brix crops is expensive. Air is important too. Not enough results in the proliferation of anaerobic microbes. So we've got air needs to get in. If you have compacted soil, you don't understand the air component, because air is not getting in. If I got a penetrometer, I'm hitting 300 psi, you're not getting aerobic microbes below 300 psi, which means your plants are pretty much done at that point. They're either going to stop or they're going to send the roots out to the side. You have now compromised the plant. It is now a lower Brix plant. It is now going to advertise itself for fungus and insect consumption, and it will cost you more money, because you will then start to apply these particular pesticides in order to take care of a problem that you just created. And nutrients. What kind of nutrients? Well, I think I was very clear that we need all of them. This is not just about NPK, and if you understand the importance of micronutrients, and maybe you didn't before this talk, but you better know it now, that the micronutrients are important. They need to be there, because when those micronutrients are there, even if you're just short one of them, just one of them, you can apply them, if you know this in advance, and your Brix levels can shoot up 3, 4, 5, 6 levels, just because there's a deficiency. This should make sense to you. If you remember from history class, the problems that people had in ships coming across the ocean, they were dying of scurvy. They just weren't sick, they were dying of scurvy. What causes scurvy? No vitamin C. So they started throwing vitamin C on the ships, scurvy stopped. So is vitamin C a miracle compound? No. Is an orange a miracle compound? No. But if you're dying of scurvy, it's about as miraculous as you can get. And so the same thing goes with the plant. If you are deficient in one particular, maybe 2 or 3, that needs to be supplied and taken care of, and therefore a lot of your problems will be taken care of, because I do not want you to spend more money than you have to. I have devoted a couple decades of my life trying to help farmers, because I've had them so severely talked down to at the universities that I attended. And I'm sick and tired of listening to them and telling me that they're not important and how we're not even allowed to talk to them. I've been told I'm not allowed to talk to you. Who am I supposed to talk to? Well, I'm supposed to talk to a county extension agent, and then the county extension agent will then come to talk to you. So we do have some extension people who are doing so. It is more occasional. The county extension agent, it's a full job, but someone like myself, I have spoken to tens of thousands of farmers. I have reached many more on the internet, and I'm doing my best in order to get information to you as fast as I can before I die. So here we go. Here's the same chart that I just showed you. I've now superimposed insect groups on this right now. The aphid group. When the Brix readings get 6 Brix, they start to leave the plant. Other aphids, there's over 5,000 species of aphids. Other aphids will disappear from a plant at 7 Brix. By the time you get to 8 Brix, you have no aphids, scales, phylloxerans, any of those type of insects are now gone. They cannot feed and will not feed on a plant that is that high. And 6 to 8 Brix still sucks, by the way. I just want to be clear on this. This is not like heaven on earth. It's just too much for the aphids. Other sucking insects, not including the aphids, leaf hoppers, plant hoppers, frog hoppers, stink bugs, the lantern flies, all of those sucking insects will leave a plant once it reaches 7 Brix, sometimes 8 Brix. By the time you get to 9 Brix, they're done, and your plants are completely devoid of sucking insects. The chewing insects include insects that chew, lepidopteran pests, the caterpillars, chewing mouth parts, feeding on your leaves, beetles, too, that may be feeding on your leaves or feeding on your roots. These chewing insects will leave a plant when it's at 9 Brix, sometimes 10 Brix. By the time you get to 11 Brix, there are really none left on the plant. And the grasshoppers I put into their own group because I've been impressed with their abilities to eat higher Brix food. They will take a bite out of 12 Brix. They will not stay long, but they will do it. And they're the most tolerant towards a high Brix food. So I have the grasshoppers and the katydids and the crickets and things of that sort in that group because they will leave a plant once it hits 10, 11, or 12 Brix. So, question, does this apply to the whole tree, the whole plant, or can a part of it be in trouble? And then the insects attack that. If part of the tree is in trouble, the insects will attack that and only that. Here's a tree right now. I think you can all see this tree's not that healthy. At least it's not looking that great to me. It does bifurcate, meaning it splits or forks. If I zoom in on this bifurcation, I can see that one of the sides, the left side, is dead. The right side is not dead, and it has bark that is developing around it. The left side has a bunch of holes. Those are created by woodpeckers, which are found in plenitude down in Florida. What are they going after? They're going after buprestid beetles and cerambycid beetles. Those are the wood-boring beetles, again, on the inside of trees, and some of them can get to be 1 to 2 inches long. Big meal for a woodpecker, worth completely destroying your tree in order to get to it. And that's what they do. But notice, the holes are all on one side. That's because that's where the beetles are. Why are the beetle larvae there? Because it's a dead tree. And insects are feeding upon the dead side of the tree, not the live side. This is what they look like, the cerambycid beetles. Those are the longhorn beetles. Beautiful, prized by collectors all over. I've got a whole bunch in my collection as well. I know others who love them to death and can take them down to genus. I can't do that, but it's a beautiful insect. The buprestid beetles, which look like bullets, include the emerald ash borer and others, are also inside trees too, and this is what the woodpeckers are going after. Here's another tree right now. The dead part in this case is on the right. The live part is on the left. Where are the woodpecker holes? They're on the right, the dead part of the tree. It's going after the beetles that are being laid inside, and then they're picking them off for a meal, only on the right side, not on the left side. We also know, too, based upon some meetings, living with the emerald ash borer is amazing. They only attack larger, older trees first. Why is that? Because the trees are dying. That's why they're being attacked. Not the young, healthy ones, but ash trees are dying. Ash trees, depending upon the species, live between 150 to 250 years old. The ash trees in Michigan predominantly and adjoining states have trees that are between 150 to 250 years old. They have reached the end of their life. When they get to this, because they were planted 150 to 250 years ago when we came over on those ships, when we were dying of scurvy. Now these ash trees are dying. The emerald ash borers are doing their job, and they're coming in and taking care of them. And this turns into a national emergency in the United States of America. We need to do something about them. So what do? They get their steels, and they take down every single tree within a 50-foot radius of a tree that is infected. We have destroyed more ash trees than the emerald ash borer. The emerald ash borer is only going after the ones that are sickly and in trouble. They're dying, they're dead. Plant another one, for goodness sakes, please. But we need to stop doing this. And if you understand, and I'm hoping that you are right now as we get near the conclusion right now of how this process works, that the emerald ash borer is only doing what it is supposed to be doing. It's going after ash trees that are on their way out. That's it. It's not just the emerald ash borer. It's the cerambycid beetles too. It's all the insects. I'm including all of them, not some. I'm including all of them. Here are some tephritid flies, females, ovipositor sticking out the back end, laying eggs in what looks like an orange. Anastropha ludens, the Mexican fruit fly. They have tasted it, they have detected it, that this is adequate for their eggs. If this orange is too healthy, they will move on to another orange and lay their eggs somewhere else. Here we've got Ragoletus indifferens, the western cherry fruit fly. There's a picture of it up there. It's another tephritid fly. Here it is eating cherry. And I mean, you look at this and you think, wow, this looks gross, 4 maggots, especially right before lunch again. There you go again, Dr. Dykstra. You got to stop doing this. But I'm looking at this cherry and I'm saying to myself, wow, this looks really unhealthy. Now, part of the reason I'm saying it's unhealthy is the same reason that you're now looking at this and saying that it's unhealthy. Simply by the presence of the insect, we can tell that it's unhealthy because they wouldn't be there if it was healthy. But there's also something else that I know that is telling me that this cherry, just by looking at the picture, is also unhealthy. I don't see a white ring. The cherry is a solid color all the way from the inside to the outside. I've got no white ring. This is a little bit of the white ring that I need to see. When I see cherries with a little bit of that white ring on the inside, you can see this is one of them is cut open. That is calcium deposits and a lot of the minerals. That is a well-mineralized cherry, and insects do not attack it. If it gets healthy enough, they will not attack it. So because there's no white ring, this is absolutely going to be consumed. This white ring is sometimes can be a little, this is grape now, switch from cherries to grapes. Take a look at the grape. I don't know if you can see it in the back, but in the front, you should be able to make out a white ring going around the outside of the grape. If it is fragmented, it's not as healthy as it should be. If it's non-existent, it's very unhealthy. If it's fragmented, it's a little bit better. If it's a solid white ring, that's even better. So we can tell by the white ring how much calcium is the tree putting into the fruit, because when they're healthy, they are not attacked by insects. So take a look at these. These are green grapes. I can tell before I even cut them open that they're not healthy. We can see the color is not that good. It doesn't have that same shine that we see on some fruits that are usually considered healthy. This one is not that shiny at all. It's got some brown dots on it. And if you open it up, you can barely make out a white ring going around the outside. These grapes are more table grapes. These grapes are going to be running 12, 13, 14 Brix for a fruit. Remember, I talked to you about leaf Brix before. Fruits are always going to be higher. But I can tell you, 12, 13, 14 is not enough, because a good grape tastes really good once it hits 20 and above. Females cannot penetrate intact plant tissue with their ovipositor. Why? Because of the ring, the calcium ring, the mineral ring. It's too tough. And so they can't lay their eggs in it, and so they move on. So there's a mechanical problem, and there's also the flavor, that taste, which is also a problem as well. This is something, this is my hand. I cut open a grape. I happened to be eating some grapes. They tasted really good. And so I quickly opened it up in order to take a look inside, and you can see, I think, even in the back, a very visible white ring around this grape. These grapes are running about 19 to 20, and they taste a lot better. They're going to have a much more oomph when you taste them. You feel a little bit of that acid, and it has that flavor component to it when you see a ring that big. As the ring grows, it will make its way all the way to the center. It will become almost completely white. Then what? Then we make wine from it. Because in viticulture, the wine industry wants 24 Brix grapes. That's what they want. Raisins, a little bit less. They can certainly deal with 22, but that's usually a high-end product as well. They're going to be looking for, they'll take 24 Brix, but they'll accept 22 Brix. The grape guys, no. It's really got to be 24, and then they go ahead and pick it, and then they make it into wine. Those are the healthiest grapes that are out there. By the time you get to table grapes, you're in the teens, and they don't taste as good, as you've probably noticed. So that pretty much sums up what I wanted to say in the first talk. I was dangerously asked in order to give a second talk by Ty, which I will be giving after lunch. This presentation and others like it have raised a lot of questions in a lot of people's minds. For that reason, I've made 4 talks. One of those 3 additional talks that you haven't seen, Ty has asked me to give, and I will be giving that after lunch. So I'll give you more background, give you a greater understanding. The title of the talk is Raising Brix and Lowering Brix, about things that cause it to go up and down, whether it be the fruit, whether it be some of the leaves, and give you a broader understanding of what it is, because, as I alluded to before, a low Brix crop is expensive. And I do not want you going out of business. I also don't want you doing things to yourselves that you should not be doing, because I understand that the suicide rate is high, so I have made it a bit of my job in order to save as many farmers as I can from going out of business and making it profitable for them so that they can continue to do it, or so that they can pass it off to their children. So this is part of the reason why I am here. Ty, I want to thank you for the invitation. I want to thank you for putting up with me for this first hour. For those of you who just haven't had enough of me, there's going to be a little bit more after lunch, and I can do a lot more